How's everyone doing? My name is Matt Terrell, and I am a director of product management working on our AI products here at Box. Very excited to have a conversation with Shyam. So, Shyam, would you mind introducing yourself for the audience?
Absolutely. Thanks, Matt, for having me. I'm Shyam Suresh. I lead the business strategy function, and I'm also the CTO for our enterprise solutions group and focused on backing and financial services customers.
Love it. Love it. So, I think one of the reasons why I've been very excited about this conversation is that you are on the front lines with customers as they're trying to figure out how to make sense of this AI journey that we all seem to be on. And I think it's very exciting, but I'm sure you have a perspective on how to navigate the treacherous waters of like AI deployments, pilots, transition from pilots to full scale deployments, all of those things. So excited to get into some of those topics.
Same here, Matt. Looking forward to our conversation.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I guess the first thing is, it feels like there's a ton of new AI capabilities that are available from a variety of different providers. And the first thing that really needs to change in order for, businesses to take advantage of these new tools are a mind shift that needs to happen within the organization. What do you think are kind of the key traits or tenets that kind of underline a good shift in mindset that makes organizations more adaptable for incoming AI tools in their workplace?
Sure. See, the good thing about the whole AI investment and the shift, Matt, the last 1 year has seen a lot of improvements in maturity, both in terms of the stack and also in terms of the organizational change, right? So organizations that are leading the AI adoption today, we see having two broad traits, right? One, they have a AI first culture, and more importantly, they also have a AI first architecture.
Okay, AI first culture. Let's take that one first. What does that
Sure.
mean to you?
Uh, See, organizations that have an AI first culture would have AI incorporated into each and every aspect of their business, right from their processes, right from the way in which they enable their associates to leverage the latest and greatest in AI, right from the way they go to market with their partners, right from the way they make AI real for a customer. AI becomes an integral part of each and every aspect of how a business functions. Unless and until you make that happen, it becomes very difficult for you to have those long term investments, be it with regard to the people that you train and then who are the face of your organization, or in terms of the IT aspects. So, AI culture is something that is underpinning the growth of any company that wants to drive AI adoption.
So you mentioned AI training as you were explaining kind of this culture shift, and one of the things that I always tell my team of PMs as we develop AI products is that one of the complicated things with SaaS is that unlike consumers, people aren't paying their hard-earned money to use the best AI tools available. These are folks that were given a license, whether they were prepared for it or not. And so, you have people who have been doing the same job, the same role, the same workflows for years. And all of a sudden, you get this license that says, hey, this is going to make you 20% more productive. And you're sitting here thinking, how? How do you kind of where does training play a role in kind of getting folks over that hurdle? Because I think adoption is often stalled at a person's desk, once
Right.
they get the license.
See, this problem happens when we try to force AI into the workflows, into the
Mm.
daily things, right? That's why we'll have to take a step back and look at AI adoption from a business perspective, right? Today, organizations that are leading this journey are not looking at AI or any technology as a technology in itself, right? They are looking at technology more as an enabler for driving better outcomes.
Mm.
So instead of pushing for let's give tomorrow a POC on AI because to address certain dashboard related stuff, if we are able to take a step back, look at a how can we improve the business outcomes and how can I improve the productivity for let's say an end-to-end workflow, how can I improve the net promoter score for our customers, how can I improve let's say a risk and compliance in an organization. If we start looking at some of these various business parameters, then it becomes inherent for each of those folks that are having touch points across all of these things to adopt AI, because they don't look at it as a deadline that they have to achieve by this quarter, they look at it as a way to provide better value for their end customer, better value for their stakeholders. So it becomes a march towards being better and improving the entire value chain for your customers. Once you bring that mindset, then it becomes much more easier, wherein the demand comes from all of our as employees rather than it comes from the management now. I'll give you an interesting tidbit of how we did as an organization. See,
Please.
we are a 600,000 organization. And when all of this AI paradigm started, we were customer zero for us. We had to internally transform so that every other interaction that we have with our customers, every other interaction that our employees, our associates have amongst themselves, have AI first problems solving thought process, right? So we brought in all of those tool sets available, the best of whatever is needed, right? The cursors of the world, access to copilots, Anthropic, OpenAI, everything was made available, but we didn't just stop there. We then encouraged all of our associates through an hackathon where we had everyone right from the management to a fresher take part in this hackathon so that we are able to bring in that thought process of solving with AI first mindset. So the more we are able to enable our teams and then encourage them to solve and use AI or solve the problems using AI, the better our outcomes will.
Love that. Love that. So you've used the word outcomes a few times, and I think that makes a ton of sense. And we'll talk a little bit more about the shifting mindset between, general productivity and true tangible outcomes in a second. But I do want to circle back to the other side of kind of AI first, which was around the technical architecture and the stack. And, as you were explaining your transformation at TCS, you mentioned access to a number of different tools, but it's not just AI at the application layer that's important. It's also AI that connects you to all of the data and the infrastructure. What does that look like, and how do organizations think and reconcile with, kind of the transformation at that level as well?
Yeah. See, that's an interesting point, right? Whenever we talk about applications or AI, we always think about the chatbots and the interactive screens that are happening, right? But
Absolutely.
there's a lot of plumbing that goes on below that. And we look at AI as a 5-layer stack, right? At the bottom lowest layer, you have the infrastructure layer. So for an organization to be successful in the long term, your infrastructure layer should be scalable, it should be secure, and it should be readily available. Availability should be very high. And once you've taken care of the infrastructure layer, then comes the data layer. And from data, we are not just talking about structured data. Over the years, we have been having a lot of ways in which we are able to gather structured data and create insights out of it. But now the real moat is in using unstructured data where all of those SOPs and other things rely and all of those documents rely. And how do we create intelligence on top of it? Because today, whenever we talk about a failure of the agentic system, it is not because data is not there, it's because the agents are not able to understand the context, right? Unless and until this happens, this is where all of those cost overruns happen because the agent tries to create those entity relationship between the various data elements on the fly, invariably resulting in cost outruns. So infrastructure layer and the data layers become the foundation of, let's say, a future-ready data platform or a future-ready digital platform that we build for the organization. Once you have these two, then the next layer is the most important layer, which is the tooling layer where all of your LLMs play. Yesterday, I was looking at an interview, and one important quote came out: "You don't need frontier models to solve non-frontier model problems."
Very
What
good.
I mean
Very
by
good
that
point.
is, if you want a knowledge buddy for all of your employees, you really don't need to put all of that data in cloud so that you are able to drive those conversations. There are various ways in which you can deliver the same outcome with much more smaller models. So it's very important for us to have various models, things that require a lot of logical reasoning, other things you use frontier models, things that are not really that important or something that can be done with smaller models, then you use those smaller models. So you should have that flexibility and the thought process when we are defining the architecture. Then comes the application layer. We spoke about how everything is going to be headless in the future, right? So we also see a future where everything is going to be orchestrated in, let's say, an enterprise-wide control layer, And each of these, let's say, unique point solutions, I'll not say point solutions, specialized solutions, right? For example, Box being the content intelligence layer, let's say something like Kong being the gateway layer, your cloud platforms being the infrastructure layer. But to orchestrate all of this end to end, so that the customer is looking at the business outcomes that they are looking at. So we have the enterprise applications layer. That is our specialty. We work with all the leading players, right? The Salesforce, the SAPs, the Oracles of the world, so that we are able to bring in the end-to-end business context and the domain needs for a customer by incorporating all of this thing.
Makes
And
sense.
once you have this entire stack, then you have the infrastructure layer anyway. Sorry, the insight layer, so that you are able to generate insights from all of these from bottom up. So once a customer is able to look at all of this thing and start specializing, but see today there is a level of maturity already in place across some of these layers. Customers have been moving to cloud for years, have been modernizing their infrastructure for years. So that provides them the scalability. But the same cannot be told at the data layer because we spoke, context is still not available. Customers are working towards it.
Yeah.
So as organizations continue their investments in AI, the ability for them to succeed will greatly depend on how they are able to drive meaningful improvements in each of these layers.
Makes total sense. Total sense. So, for those of you playing box bingo at home, we hit a couple of buzzwords that are very important to us here. Context being one of them, unstructured data, headless. Those are all things that I keyed in on your response because, in the walls of product ideation here at Box, those are terms that we think about pretty significantly. And we're very excited about the task at hand for us, which is really to transform content into the context that these agents need. And so one of the things that you said that I thought was very well said was that, agents don't fail because of their capability. They fail because they don't understand your business context. For an agent to recommend the right things, provide the right answers, dare I say, be automated to make workflow decisions, they have to be grounded in context. And I think everybody who's playing in this AI space has their own philosophy of where this context lives. Customers like, or companies like Salesforce would say, hey, the relationship management within your CRM is a great place to derive context. The Slack, also Salesforce, your conversations in real time. We think that, an amazing place that's often forgotten is your content. Documents are created, signatures are signed, things are moving through workflows. There's a content lifecycle that's been around far longer than kind of this AI adoption boom. And there's something really exciting about being positioned to take all of the learnings that we've had in intelligent content management and figure out how we make that accessible to agents as a content layer. And so what that allows us to do in the position that we're in at Box is to figure out, look, regardless of where your application layer lives, and this is where we get to the headless point, but regardless of where your application layer lives, whether it is with one of the labs tools in Gemini or in Claude or in ChatGPT, you're going to need to connect it to context from your business that those agents and those AI products can consume and understand. And what are the things that we can do on our end to make that content ready? The metaphor that I like to think about is that if you are kind of thinking about using Box in this headless capacity, think about us as the librarian in the Library of Congress. Too large for an AI tool to come in and say, even if they know exactly what they're looking for, it's a needle in the haystack problem at that point. And, as we know, like sometimes RAG can be, hit or miss in those examples. But if you have this librarian to kind of welcome you to the front door, what are you looking for? Okay, let me go through my ontology and understand like what you're asking, what might make sense given what I know about the resources that live in your unstructured data and direct you to the right files, maybe even pre-synthesize some of those things using our own agentic processes. There's some really interesting opportunities we can have that take advantage of all of the latest and greatest technology that these labs are building, plus that content into context layer that makes everything work in an enterprise environment. The other thing that you mentioned, I thought that was very well said, and one that is kind of also points to something that's exciting at Box is this: you don't need a frontier model to solve problems that are not frontier model problems. I think I have enjoyed kind of the product space at Box because of our model neutrality and us really being able to pick the right tool for the job, not just within a specific model family, but also across different LLM and model providers. So we may use a different partner for our search tools, something that's lighter weight than we would for our deep kind of document analysis or even document creation, and being able to pull and mesh those different tools from different partners is really beneficial, and it's cost effective. So I think some of the things that you were mentioning, where the future of this, kind of data layer will be, how do you adapt to the need and route things to the right cost model? I think we're all thinking about rising AI costs at this particular moment. And
See, I
so,
had
yeah.
an interesting. No, I just wanted to talk about an interesting terminology that Satya Nadella had coined.
Please.
See, we always talk about human capital management, right? When we talk about AI mindset, now the focus is also on how do you have a TCM or a token capital management so that
Yes.
you are able to efficiently manage the tokens, right? And this goes back into the entire mindset, right? Because everyone would have to now accept the fact that we are not going to be in either a full-blown AI-only model or a full-blown human-only model, right? The intersection of where the human and AI can work together to drive the outcomes that we are looking for, and that is where the future is going to look like. And see, you also brought about the point, right? See, the future is not going to be, or at least in our point of view, it's not going to be just in one set of products or one set of things, right? There is going to be a specialization across each of those different layers that we spoke about. And the context layer would have to bring in the best of everything at an enterprise level. And that's why the problem is so difficult today to solve, because everything is not available immediately. As you rightly pointed out, box could be the layer where we are able to bring in the context from both your unstructured data and the structured data. And then we bring in all of this knowledge that is available in all these different data silos today and integrate it so that we are able to create that enterprise-wide ontology layer. And that is going to take at least a couple of years. And that would happen only if the mindset change happens and we start creating processes and frameworks for a human plus AI led execution in our things.
So you're talking now about the operating model and how that's going to shift as trust, maybe in these AI tools. And trust is always anchored on the flip side of trust is actual capability that has been proven and value extracted. How do you see the ecosystem changing to address kind of this shifting operating model, and the move from AI as a tool to AI being ultimately autonomous? What are kind of the steps in between, and how do folks get there?
Right. See, I'll briefly talk about when I talk about operating model, right? We see similar to your autonomous cars, right? We see it as a five-staged paradigm from using AI as just a tool to having a fully run agentic enterprise. See, the good and bad thing about AI is AI doesn't hold any secrets, right? If whatever you put in your pre-training and fine-tuning is available for everyone to see. So it becomes very important for us to really start understanding what we are trying to build so that your entire architecture is defined in that way, right? So in order to ensure that this happens, we see a lot models wherein the platform and the governance around AI is managed by a centralized team, so that the guardrails and let's say the token management, the FinOps of the entire AI is managed in a central thing. But the innovation that happens at a business level is federated. So we are moving into a model. Previously, we are all used to models where we have functional teams, we have finance teams, we have HR teams, we have, let's say, the product teams that are working within their own constructs. But more and more, we are looking at organization structure where innovation is federated. governance is centralized. So that
Mhm.
also means that the focus is shifting more towards a value stream based organizations, right? We are no more looking at a siloed functional organization. This is not just a matrix also, because we are not trying to put an old wine in a new bottle and then try to sell, right? So we are trying to create models wherein every team is a self-contained team, right? What we used to call as pod, so that we are able to drive a business value for a customer. And we are also seeing significant changes in how we go to market, right? For example, previously this cross-functional team of experts that will deliver a business outcome for a customer predominantly used to be more at a functional layer, right? Meaning you will have a development team, you will have an architecture team, you will have a business team, so that they're able to deliver. Now, agents are an integral part of all of this thing, right? Today, if we are building a team of 10 people, at least 2 of them are full-fledged agents, right? And agents have seen we are seeing good traction in the coding space, for example. So whenever a team like this is formed to achieve a business function, then we see a lot of these changes. So we quickly spoke about how the entire organization structure is changing, but the licensing models are also changing, right?
Mm.
And I mean, there has been a lot of buzz in the market about uh, how there is going to be a SaaS club, right? So I mean, all the SaaS companies are also looking at ways in which they can move from a seat-based pricing to a agent-based pricing, right?
Mhm.
And the same thing is happening for us also. We are also moving from a traditional pricing to more agent-based pricing. So every aspect of organizations go to market, right from how they are internally structured, how they interact with partners, how they interact with their end customers. Everything is changing with this thing, and the teams that will come out successful are ones that understand that this is a ongoing thing, and things are the organizations that are adapting are much more faster and that are ready to quickly iterate and then move forward. They are the ones who would eventually be successful.
No, I think a lot of that makes a ton of sense. And one of the things that you said that I thought was really interesting was that your AI applications or your tool layer, that will be kind of flexible depending on the team, depending on the need, the organization. But that governance layer, the security, that's the piece that you want to be central. And I think that is very relevant to us. Governance, privacy, security is something that's been in the Box DNA since the company's inception, and so being able to provide that governance layer is a real asset. For us, making sure that the changes and the mutations that might be starting someplace in a completely different third-party AI application only flow through to your source of truth, which for us and our customers is usually the Box content. Making sure that there are the right permissions, the right security, that the right agents have the right levels of access, that we're very thoughtful about the definition of agent identity in these worlds where you are going to start seeing more and more team members actually be agents, which means that they require an identity. You need to be able to audit. You need to be able to say, hey, this change was made by an agent on Matt's behalf, right? What does that mean if something needs to be rolled back? So those are all interesting problems that I think we're thinking about. And I think where governance security is so important is that it allows you to have that trust to be flexible and to experiment with different tools and different products and different models and different pricing structures and all of these things. Is that if you have comfort and confidence that your data is protected, your willingness to explore and be malleable and to let the field decide what works for them all of a sudden changes. As you are working with your clients, many of whom are in financial services, what are you seeing there, and what hurdles are folks still facing, in light of some of these challenges in the changing landscape?
Yeah. See, in terms of financial services, and also a little more broadly, right? Today, we are seeing a lot of use cases or adoption cases in areas where uh, there is a level of probabilistic things that can be put in, where
Mhm.
deterministic workflows are not really mandatory, right? See, one such example is from a banking perspective. So all the front office functions, right? Our interactions that we do with our banking chatbots, or let's say assistant functions for a person that is servicing customers, either at the call center or let's say uh, at a bank branch. All of those things are, let's say, easy wins for the banks, because in all of these places, the interaction with the customer is supported by data that is residing across multiple different applications, and
Mm,
the AI
siloed
LLMs are able
information.
siloed information. And also, for example, if let's say we call up a service center, the person who is supporting us would have to end up still looking into multiple different screens, and applications to help us in this journey. LLMs have been greatly helping in consolidating all of this information and helping in that process. So front office is one place where there's a lot of change that is happening, and it's been a really great experience for most of the banks, right?
Hmm.
And the second area is from a back office, right? So in fact, we are working with Box to incorporate uh, uh, AI into the claims process for a couple of our insurance customers.
Mm.
Today, when you put up a claim, right, the adjuster who is looking and validating the claim would have to look at several documents that includes the policy documents, validating the authenticity of all the data that we are uploading as, let's say scans and other things to arrive at a conclusion, right? Today, without AI, the standard process is open the policy document that corresponds to the policy that you have taken, look at whether the claim that you have made aligns with all of your policy things, then start verifying. This entire process we are automating with the help of Box, so that we are able to validate the content that is being uploaded, able to extract the data out of it, so that we are able to improve productivity for the agent as a whole, right? So this is also happening a lot more now. And for much more complex processes, right? For example, let's say you're looking at a credit approval process or a loan process. We are layering Gen AI or the agentic AI along with traditional machine learning, so that we are able to use the best of what is available today, right? For example, to make a credit decision, it has to be black and white, because all of those are audited. And at any point of time, the bank should be able to tell these are the exact reasons why we either approved or we denied this thing, right? So in those type of workflows, we will use a combination of, let's say, an orchestration layer, so that we are able to have a very deterministic workflow. Then you will have a ML layer that will make the calculation of the credit things and other things. And then again, it will comes back to the rule layer or the orchestration layer. And then you will have an LLM layer where it will then collate all of this information and present it in a fact, so that it's much more easier for people to understand. So across each of this layer, the immediate focus, at least within our customers, is to identify use cases. Even it doesn't matter if it is small or large. Look at use cases that can be quick wins, operationalize it, scale it, and then keep repeating, so that you are able to create a backlog, or you are able to create a set of agents that can create a marked improvement in your operating parameters between now and the next year. But having said this, there are still challenges, as we spoke about, right? See, still from the infrastructure layer, not every application is today on cloud. That means that
Mm.
scalability, there are still a lot of workflows that are happening on traditional mainframe systems.
Hmm.
So they are not as cloud native, or they are not as AI native. So a lot of effort goes into modernizing all of your legacy stack. The most important problem that we spoke about, data, well, data is still siloed in organizations across multiple data warehouses. And more important thing is the enterprise context is something that is missing, because those models are, or sorry, those systems are built for human consumption. Now, if you want agent to start consuming the data and to make sense of it, then you need that context layer. So that is still not there. And because of both of this, there are a lot of cost overruns, because we tend to throw everything at LLMs, and it takes a lot more time for it to do. Some of these things will change with designing better system. For example, instead of doing a lot of things at runtime, if we can create more deterministic processes at the design time, then your agent might not need as many loops to figure out a problem.
Mhm.
So some changes like that, and some intentful changes where you look at a long-term horizon and start building those stuff. A combination of these things will help customers overcome the challenges and really start leveraging the benefits of what AI has to offer.
Love it. Love it. So, in this conversation, which I very much enjoyed, we've kind of gone through what it means to be AI first and on what do organizations need to be thinking about as they manage this transition and this moment of really great potential and gains in productivity. What does it mean for team structures, the operating model? How are we actually seeing that in practice in a specific industry of financial services? So, um, I think there's a lot to think about, and a lot for folks to really start to dive deep into their own structures, their own practices, and figure out what they need to do to be AI ready. But I've really enjoyed the conversation, so thank you, and thank you to our audience for tuning in.